When my husband told me he was leaving me for his ex-girlfriend, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just smiled and said 3 words that made him smirk. But 24 hours later, his lawyer was sweating bullets and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Here's what I said. Before I tell you how one calm sentence changed everything, hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to hear every word of this story. And trust me, by the end, you'll understand why staying silent is sometimes the loudest move you can make. Drop a comment and let me know if you've ever had to play chess while someone thought you were playing checkers. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Nicole, and 5 years ago, I met a man who would change my life in ways I never imagined. I was 32, running my own interior design firm, and honestly doing pretty well for myself. I'd worked hard to build something that was mine, something that had my name on it and my vision behind it. I wasn't looking for a man to save me or complete me. I was complete already. But then I met Charles at a charity gala for children's hospitals, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't swept off my feet. Charles was different from anyone I'd dated before. He was older, 41 at the time, and he had this quiet confidence about him. He wasn't flashy, even though he had every reason to be. The man was a self-made billionaire in real estate development, started out as a construction manager, worked his way up, made smart investments, and built an empire one property at a time. When he told me his story that first night, I was impressed, not by the money, but by the drive. By the fact that he understood what it meant to build something from nothing because I was doing the same thing in my own way. Our romance moved fast, maybe too fast looking back on it now, but at the time it felt right. He pursued me like I was the only woman in the world. Flowers sent to my office with handwritten notes. Surprise weekend trips to places I'd mentioned wanting to visit. He asked about my work, my dreams, my family. He met my parents and charmed my mother within 5 minutes. Within a year, we were married in a beautiful ceremony in the Bahamas with 100 of our closest friends and family. Life as Charles's wife was comfortable. I won't lie about that. We had a penthouse with a view that made visitors gasp. We attended galas and fundraisers. We vacationed in places most people only see in magazines. But here's the thing people don't understand about me. I never stopped working. I never became just Mrs. Charles Whitmore. I was still Nicole Harris Whitmore, owner of Harris Design Studio. I kept my business, grew it actually, and made sure everyone knew I wasn't just some trophy wife spending her husband's money. I was building my own legacy. Charles said he loved that about me. He'd brag to his friends about how his wife was just as ambitious as he was. He never asked me to give up my career, never made me feel like I should just stay home and look pretty. And foolishly, I thought that meant something deeper. I thought it meant he saw me as an equal, as a partner. When he insisted we didn't need a prenuptial agreement, I was actually touched. He said, "I trust you completely, and I want you to trust me." He said marriage was about partnership, not protection, and I believed him. But marriages, even ones that look perfect from the outside, have cracks. Little ones at first. Phone calls he'd take in another room. Late nights at the office that became more frequent. Distance that crept in slowly, like fog rolling in off the ocean. You don't notice it until you're already surrounded by it. I'd try to have real conversations with him, the kind we used to have, and he'd be there physically, but somewhere else mentally. I told myself it was stress, that running multiple businesses was demanding, that I needed to be understanding. Then there was Brittany, his ex-girlfriend from before he made it big, before the money, before the success. When he was just a construction manager with big dreams and a studio apartment. She'd left him back then, from what I'd heard, decided he wasn't going anywhere and moved on to someone with better prospects. It's funny how people's perspectives change when your net worth changes, isn't it? For years, she was just a footnote in his history, someone he mentioned once or twice when telling stories about his past. But about a year ago, her name started appearing more often. She'd comment on his social media posts. She'd show up at the same charity events we attended. She'd always make a point to say hello, to hug him just a little too long, to laugh just a little too loud at his jokes. I'm not a jealous woman by nature. I never went through his phone or followed him around, but I'm also not stupid. I know when something's off. I know when the energy in my own home shifts. About 6 months before that Tuesday evening that changed everything, I hired a private investigator, not because I wanted to catch him doing something wrong, but because I needed to know the truth. I needed to either confirm my suspicions or put them to rest so I could stop feeling crazy. The investigator confirmed what my gut already knew. Charles and Brittany were having an affair. Hotel meetings, dinner dates when he said he was working late, text messages that would make your stomach turn. But the investigator found something else, too. Something that would turn out to be far more important than the affair itself. See, over the years of our marriage, Charles had put several properties in my name for what he called tax purposes. He'd made me a partner in some of his business ventures, told me it was just paperwork, just legal stuff I didn't need to worry about. He'd opened joint accounts and put my name on investments. At the time, I'd signed whatever he put in front of me because I trusted him, because he was my husband, because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You trust them. But when my financial advisor pulled me aside 3 months before that Tuesday and said, "Nicole, we need to talk about protecting yourself," I started paying attention differently. I started reading every document. I started understanding exactly what my signature was on and what it meant. And I started making copies of everything. Not because I was planning to divorce him, I was still hoping we could fix things, if I'm being honest, but because I was finally understanding that hope isn't a strategy. Protection isn't betrayal. It's wisdom. So when that Tuesday evening came, when Charles walked into our penthouse at 6 o'clock instead of his usual 9 or 10, when he poured himself a whiskey and sat down across from me with that determined look on his face, I already knew. I was sitting there reviewing blueprints for a new boutique hotel project, and I saw him rehearsing his words in his head. I could see it in the way he swirled his drink, in the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes at first. "Nicole," he said, and his voice was steady, not guilty, not apologetic, just steady. "We need to talk." I put down my pen and looked at him. "Okay." "I'm going back to Brittany," he said, just like that. No build-up. No softening the blow. "We're getting divorced." I want you to understand something about that moment. Inside, my heart was breaking. Inside, I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Inside, I was that little girl who believed in fairy tales and happy endings, and she was crying. But outside? Outside, I was calm. I was so calm it probably looked like I didn't care. But that calmness wasn't about not caring. It was about control. It was about not giving him the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. It was about keeping my power. "When did this start?" I asked, like we were discussing a business transaction. He seemed almost relieved by my tone, like he'd expected screaming and crying and drama, and my calmness made this easier for him. "About 6 months ago," he admitted. "She reached out, we started talking, and we realized we'd made a mistake all those years ago. She was my first love, Nicole. Before all of this, before the money and the businesses and the complications. With her, things are simple, real." I nodded slowly, taking it in. "So you've been planning this?" "I've talked to my lawyer already," he said, and there it was. He'd been planning this, preparing. While I was trying to save our marriage in my head, he was plotting his exit strategy. "I want to be fair to you. You'll be taken care of. I'm offering you $2 million in the settlement. That's more than generous, considering you came into this marriage with nothing." That sentence, "You came into this marriage with nothing," that's when I knew exactly who I was dealing with. This wasn't the man I'd married, or maybe it was, and I'd just been too in love to see it clearly. He'd already discounted everything I was, everything I'd built, everything I'd contributed. To him, I was just the woman who got lucky when she married him. I took a sip of my wine and looked at him, really looked at him. And then I smiled. Not a happy smile, just a small, knowing smile. "Okay," I said quietly. "Take the house." The confusion on his face was almost comical. "What?" "Take the house, Charles. If that's what you want, take it." He studied me for a moment, probably trying to figure out if this was some kind of trap, but then relief washed over his features. He actually smiled back. "I appreciate you being so mature about this, Nicole." "Really? A lot of women would make this ugly, but you're handling it with grace. My lawyer will contact yours tomorrow, and we'll get the paperwork started." I nodded and stood up. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed." "I'll sleep in the guest room," he said, already pulling out his phone, probably to text Brittany and tell her how well it went. I went to our bedroom. Well, I guess it was just his bedroom now, and closed the door. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself feel it for exactly 5 minutes. I cried quiet tears for the marriage I thought I had, for the man I thought I knew, for the future I'd imagined. 5 minutes. That's all I allowed myself. Because after those 5 minutes, I had work to do. I picked up my phone and started making calls. First, my lawyer, who I'd put on retainer 2 months earlier. "It's happening," I told her. "He wants a divorce. He offered me $2 million. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. "Tomorrow morning, file the paperwork we discussed." Second call went to my financial advisor. "Execute the plan." Third call went to my brother, Thomas, who happens to be a forensic accountant. "I need you to go through everything one more time. Make sure we didn't miss anything. See, here's what Charles didn't know. Those properties he put in my name for tax purposes, they were legally mine. The business ventures he made me a partner in, I actually was a partner with full legal rights. Those joint accounts required both signatures for major transactions, and over the past 3 months, while he was busy falling back in love with his ex, I'd been quietly documenting everything, every asset, every investment, every business dealing. My brother had helped me understand exactly what I legally owned versus what I just thought I owned. The numbers were staggering. Charles thought he was worth about $800 million, and on paper, he was. But what he'd forgotten, or maybe never fully realized, was how much of that was technically half mine or fully mine. The penthouse we lived in? My name was on the deed, solely. 3 of his major commercial properties? Joint ownership. His construction company? I'd invested $2 million of my own money into it 4 years ago when he was expanding, making me a shareholder. The vacation homes, the investment portfolios, the art collection he was so proud of. My name was attached to almost all of it in some legal capacity. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up making lists, reviewing documents, making sure every detail was perfect. Around 3 a.m, I walked past the guest room and heard him snoring peacefully. Must be nice to sleep well when you think you're getting everything you want. The next morning, I woke up, showered, got dressed in one of my best suits. I made breakfast like it was any other Wednesday morning. Charles came into the kitchen looking rested, relaxed, happy even. "Good morning," he said, actually pleasant. "Morning," I replied, sliding a plate of eggs toward him. "Coffee?" "Thanks." He sat down, scrolling through his phone. "I have a meeting at 10, but my lawyer said he'd have the initial divorce papers drawn up by the end of day. This should all be pretty quick and painless." I responded, sipping my coffee. "I need to get to the office." "I have a client meeting." I did have a client meeting. I also had a meeting with my lawyer at 9. By 9:30, documents had been filed with the court. By 10:15, while Charles was in his meeting, his lawyer was calling him with what I imagine was urgent news. I was in my office when my phone started ringing. "Charles." I let it ring. He called again. I let it ring. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time. On the 6th call, I answered. "Nicole." His voice wasn't calm anymore. It was tight, stressed, angry. "What the hell did you do?" "I took the house, Charles. Like you suggested. My lawyer just told me you filed papers claiming half of everything. You're trying to take my properties, my businesses, Your properties?" I interrupted, my voice still calm. "Let's be accurate. The penthouse is in my name, solely. The commercial building on 5th Street? Joint ownership, which means I own half. The development project in Brooklyn? I'm a legal partner with a 30% stake. Should I keep going? Silence. Then, that was all for tax purposes. You know that. What I know is what's legal, Charles, what's on paper. You wanted to avoid a prenup because you said marriage was about trust and partnership. Well, partner, it turns out we partnered on quite a lot. My lawyer estimates that I have legal claim to approximately $45 million in assets. Your $2 million offer was insulting. You can't do this. Now his voice was desperate. Nicole, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm taking what's legally mine, what my name is on, what I invested in, helped build, or what you put in my name yourself. You said I came into this marriage with nothing, but I didn't leave it with nothing, did I? Because while you were busy planning your future with Brittany, you forgot that your wife wasn't just some decoration. Your wife was your partner, in every sense of the word. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt powerful. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The next few weeks were intense. His lawyer tried everything: negotiation, intimidation, claims that I'd manipulated him into putting things in my name. My lawyer, bless her, was merciless. She presented documentation of every legitimate investment I'd made, every contribution I'd given to his businesses, every bit of proof that I wasn't just a name on a document. She showed how my design firm had contracted with his properties, increasing their value. She demonstrated that I'd built wealth too, that this wasn't about taking what I hadn't earned. Brittany disappeared pretty quickly once she realized the fairy tale ending wasn't going to be as luxurious as she'd imagined. Funny how that works? True love isn't quite as romantic when the money gets complicated, I guess. The final settlement took 4 months to finalize. I didn't take him for everything I could have. I'm not vindictive like that. But I took what was fair, what was mine. I kept the penthouse because I'd always loved it, and because legally it was mine anyway. I took my share of the properties I had legitimate claim to. I kept my investments and made sure my business was completely separated from his. Charles kept his core real estate business, his construction company minus my shares, which I sold back to him at market value, and enough assets to still be extraordinarily wealthy. But he learned something valuable. He learned not to underestimate his wife. Ex-wife. That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm sitting in that same penthouse, the one I told him to take. Turns out it was mine to keep all along. My design firm just landed 3 major contracts, including one with a hotel chain that's been a dream client for years. I'm expanding, hiring new designers, opening a second office. I'm dating again, taking it slow, remembering who I am outside of being someone's wife. People ask me all the time how I stayed so calm that night, how I didn't fall apart when the man I loved told me he was leaving me for someone else. The truth is, I did fall apart. Just not in front of him. I fell apart in private, in my own time, on my own terms. But I didn't let him see it, because I knew something important. I knew that the moment you show someone all your pain, you give them all your power, and I wasn't about to do that. When I said, "Take the house," Charles thought I was surrendering. He thought I was being weak, being agreeable, making his life easier. What he didn't realize was that I was accepting everything that was already mine. I wasn't giving up anything. I was claiming everything. Those 3 words weren't a white flag. They were a declaration. Here's what I learned from all of this. Love is important. Trust is important. But so is protecting yourself. So is knowing your worth. So is understanding that signing documents with your name on them means something, legally and practically. I learned that you can be in love and still be smart. You can trust someone and still verify. You can hope for the best and still prepare for the worst. That's not cynicism, that's wisdom. I also learned that silence is powerful. When everyone expects you to scream, whisper. When everyone expects you to fall apart, stand tall. When everyone expects you to beg, walk away. The people who underestimate you are giving you the greatest advantage you could ask for. They're showing you their cards while assuming you don't know how to play the game. Let them. Let them think you're naive, emotional, weak, and then show them exactly who you are when it matters most. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Charles and Brittany broke up. Apparently, once the reality of a complicated divorce and reduced wealth set in, the magic faded. I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel vindictive. Honestly, I didn't feel much of anything. That chapter of my life is closed, and I'm writing a new one now. One where I'm the author, the protagonist, and the hero of my own story. So yes, when my husband told me he was leaving me for his ex, I said 3 words that changed everything. Take the house. And I meant it, because it was mine all along, just like my power, my worth, and my future. He just forgot who he was dealing with. That was his mistake, not mine. So that's how 3 words changed everything. If this story taught you something about protecting yourself, knowing your worth, or the power of staying calm when everything's falling apart, smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me, would you have stayed quiet or confronted him immediately? Subscribe because I've got more stories about women who refuse to be underestimated. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, sometimes the best response is the one nobody sees coming. Sometimes the quietest move is the most powerful one. I'll see you in the next one.